Hi and welcome to my channel, I'm Simon, and today I am back on the last day of June, so actually timely for once, with my June book haul. So some of the books that I've been sent by publishers, all the books that I bought myself, and a gift, which is exciting. I will say in this haul, there are way more books that I've bought myself than books that I've been sent by publishers. I'm sometimes a little bit aware, or have some snarky comments that make me aware, that I buy too many books, which I just think is ridiculous. Like, it's my choice what I buy and spend my money on, but also quite often get, oh, you just get all of your books sent for you by publishers, you don't really buy very many. Not true, as this will attest. I think the reason I bought so many books was because I was in Hay for the book festival, and just to give a little bit of a plug, Sky Arts from Hay is now on the telly box with me interviewing various different guests who are at Hay Festival and having quite an intimate chat with them about their books and books in general. So if you want to check that out, I will link that down below along with all of the other linky dink dinks. I also was very kindly given a voucher from the folk at Books in My Bag, which Mum and I had meant to spend together on a shopping trip, but that got kind of derailed. I'll have a chat about that when I get to it, because I ended up just going and spending it in my local favourite indie bookshop. But all that's to come. Let's first of all head to the books from publishers. I don't include every book that I get sent from publishers because some I'm a bit unsure about because I get a lot unsolicited. But what I do want to do is share with you, first of all, as always, books that I've shown on the channel before but I haven't shown their finished edition. So first up we have Promise by Rachel Eliza Griffiths. I don't know very much about this at all, other than it's edited by the wonderful Yvonne Battle Felton, who wrote Remembered, which I absolutely adored. She's now joined John Murray as an editor, and yeah, very, very excited for this one. Then we have a book that I'm actually quite shocked I haven't got to yet because the premise is so me. It's Alex Hayes' The Housekeepers, and this is all about a sort of, I think, group of quite sinister housekeepers who get fired and then come back to have their revenge. That's the vibe I've got from this. It does feel a bit autumnal. However, I've read a book recently that reminded me that Gothic books can be absolute bangers even when it's sunny outside. So yeah, we have that. We also have Colour by Colin Walsh, which I don't know very much about other than people are raving about it. I feel like it might be about a young girl who goes missing, and I don't know whether it's one of those ones where there's repercussions at a later date or something similar happens which leads to memories of the time. I'll find out because I really, really want to read this very soon. And then, last but not least, we have Colson Whitehead's Crook Manifesto, which I found out is actually a sort of sequel slash prequel, like alongside or something, as his previous novel Harlem Shuffle, which I haven't read yet and I really want to because I have read two of Colson Whitehead's books and enjoyed them very much indeed. Well, if enjoyed is the right term, because they were both quite traumatic in parts but just really gripped me and were just very powerful. So yeah, I want to read more of his work. Then we have a few books that have arrived previously but I haven't mentioned because I do have these piles of books that are my sort of maybe books, and I'm actually going to be on Patreon in the Savage Beta Readers tier going through that pile because there are quite a lot of them that I'm a little bit unsure about and feel like I want to try a chapter of to decide whether I'm going to read them or not. So that's something that'll be coming on there. However, sometimes on those piles of my unsure books, there'll be ones that I hear about and I'm like, oh my goodness, I now need to read them. The first of those is Chrysalis by Anne Metcalfe. Now I heard Jen raving about this and that really, really made me want to read it. I really want to get the finished edition as well because it's a stunning cover. Well, let's see if I like it first. And then also I saw Chad on Instagram raving about it too, and I was like, right, okay, this means I need to get to it. It's about a woman who we never hear her own narration. We hear it through, it might be 4 or 5 people around her describing her and their interactions with her, and we get her through all of their perspectives, which I just think sounds really, really interesting. Jen compared it to The Vegetarian by Hank Hang. I love that book. And then another one that I've just been hearing amazing things about is Bellies by Nicola Dinan, and this is about a couple of, I think they start off as friends who then end up in this relationship together, and Ming decides to transition to become a woman, and it's how it affects affects their relationship. I think it's set in like Kuala Lumpur and stuff. It sounds like it travels like around the world, and that really, really intrigues me. I also really, really love the cover, so very excited for this one. And then the other one that I've been hearing rave things about is Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adeji Brenya. And I wasn't too fussed on this when the proof arrived, but hearing about it and how it looks at the prison system in America really intrigues me. So yeah, I'm going to definitely give this one a whirl in due course. I'm now going to move on to books that have come this month from publishers that I haven't mentioned before. And first of all, it's quite a brave send from Faber, and that is Claire Keegan's So Late in the Day, which is a short story that's coming out in September. I haven't got on so well with Claire Keegan so far. I know people absolutely loved Small Things Like These. I just wasn't a massive fan of it. I felt like a bit too much was given away too early, which lessened the effect for me. That's just a personal thing. I then read Foster, which I preferred, but still didn't really love. But I'm going to give this one a whirl because this will take no time to read at all. Then we have La Kiribotto by Ayodele Olofintuade. I wanted to read this since I saw Cypher Press first post that they were going to be publishing it, and they very kindly sent me this. It's a book about queer characters in Nigeria where it is very difficult to be queer, and that's something that I want to learn more about, and I think fiction can be a really brilliant way of doing that. Then when it arrived, it says a twisty thriller about the fate of a sprawling family in Lagos. La Kiribotto is a queer feminist revenge thriller like no other, in which murder, betrayal and witchcraft collide with explosive results. That, to me, I'm gonna say it sounds like a 5-star kind of book for me, and at some point I must do a 5-star prediction video. I think I should do a 5-star predictions reading vlog to see if actually they are 5 stars, because I'll do a prediction video and then not talk about the book for ages. But that's what happens, isn't it? Sometimes you get a book, you're excited about it, and either you put it off because you're saving it for a rainy day, or you get nervous and decide to read it later on. I definitely want to read this very soon. I think what Cypher Press are doing with the books they're publishing is fantastic and really exciting. So yeah, really excited for that one. The lovely folk at Picador sent me Sea Change by Gina Chung, which is out in August, and I love this proof cover. I think it's brilliant. This sounds so bonkers. This is about a woman whose boyfriend has gone off to Mars on like an expedition. Her best friend's kind of like just too busy with her own stuff to even notice what she's going through, and she's got this kind of obsession with a giant squid that's at the local aquarium. However, someone really, really rich buys the squid, and then, well, Roe, I think, unravels from there. Unravels like tentacles. There we go. I'm really, really intrigued for this one. It sounds bonkers, but bonkersly brilliant, if you know what I mean. Then we have the immortal cult classic, The Gilda Stories by Joelle Gomez. And again, this was one that came unsolicited, but when I read the proof, I was like, I get why they've sent me it, because it sounds amazing. Louisiana, 1850, a young girl escapes slavery and is taken in by two mysterious women, rumoured to be witches. The pair travel only at night, dressed in men's clothing, and seem to know others' innermost thoughts. But the girl sees the promise of true freedom in their dark, glittering eyes, the promise to share the blood and live forever. They name her Gilda, and we follow her over the next 200 years. It's giving me woman-eating vibes. It's giving me Octavia Butler. I've only read a couple of hers, but it's giving me those sort of vibes, and I'm just, yeah, really, really intrigued. It does sound like vintage classic, so maybe it has been a book that's been published before. It's out in September in this edition, and I think it's going to be a perfect read for around Halloween. Then we have Weirdo by Sarah Pascoe, that the lovely folk at Faber sent me. This is Sarah Pascoe's debut novel. She's a comedian here in the UK. She also is the host of the Great British Sewing Bee, which is a show that I love, and I'm going to be doing an event with Sarah in September, so I need to get reading this before that. I'm really excited for it. This next book is an exclusive Women's Prize Live Festival edition. This is The List of Suspicious Things by Jenny Godfrey, which sounds like it's going to be very kind of Joanna Cannon, which excites me. And it's actually it's set in the 80s, and it's about the Yorkshire Ripper, and yeah, I'm really, really intrigued for it. I had a little flick through, and the writing just seemed, yeah, quite Joanna Cannon-y, and I love Joanna Cannon's writing, so very, very excited for this one, as I am Kobe Benben's No One Dies Yet. Now, I know Kobe through Instagram. This is a queer tale set in Ghana, and that instantly interests me. I'm really on a kick of trying to read queer experiences outside of my own, and I'll be getting to it in due course. It's from Europa Editions and it's out in August. Another queer novel that I'm very, very excited about, and this is Blackouts by Justin Torres. This won't end up obviously looking like this, it's going to look quite different. This is one reason that I show those books at the beginning. I do say this quite a lot. I think publishers need to create proofs that are pretty close to what the final version is going to look like, because if you're sharing it on YouTube or Instagram or wherever, that's what people are going to remember. Anyway, I've wanged on about that before. This is about two gay men, one who is quite elderly and is close to dying, and it's about a younger man who's kind of looking after him, and they share their stories together, and I think this is going to be absolutely fantastic. Also very excited for this next book. It's The Glutton by A.K. Blakemore, which is out in September from the folk at Granta. A.K. Blakemore's previous novel, The Manningtree Witches, was the winner of the Desmond Elliott Prize when I judged it, and I loved that book so much. It was a really gritty, dark historical novel, and I think this is going to be the same, and I think it's also based on a true story, and that is quite often my favourite kind of historical fiction, I have to say, when it's based on like something true that happened. Generally, I prefer more lesser known things. Like, I'm not so interested in stories around kings and queens and stuff, but just kind of bonkers things that have happened in history, and I think that's going to be one of them. Then, in this very fancy pants box, you might be able to guess what's in here. Yes, it is Page Boy by Elliot Page, if I can get it out, which also came with a lovely note. I laughed when this came because it's going to appear again later in this video, because I also bought it for myself because I was so keen to get my mitts on it. Elliot Page is a Hollywood actor and came sort of to be most known for their performance in Juno, and has since transitioned, and this looks at that journey, and I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. A book that's coming out in 2024, they're starting to arrive. This is The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan. I don't know anything about what the book is about. I do know that Tracy Chevalier cannot stop raving about it, and that's a really, really good sign, because Tracy told me she only gives like 1 or 2 books a year a quote, but she's actually been actively pushing this, so I think it's going to be incredible. It's a debut, it's out in January, I'm going to be reading it very soon. I've just seen that it's set in the 1930s British Malaya, and I'm not going to read any more because I do like to not know things about books. 3 more books to go from publishers before we move on to a gift of them books that I bought myself. We have Neon Roses by Rachel Dawson, which is a book that the publisher asked if I would like on Instagram, because I commented how brilliant it looked, and I said yes please. This is another queer novel. I don't know exactly what it's about, but Sarah Waters says it's tender, sexy, uplifting and fun, and I remember reading the blurb on Instagram and thinking, yes, I would really like to get to that. So I will be getting to that. This was a cover love book. I just think this cover's so amazing. The publishers emailed me and said, would you like a copy? I have read the author before. I didn't really get on with that book too much, but this just looks and sounds like it's going to be like incredible. It's Lioness by Emily Perkins, who wrote, was it The Trees, I want to say, or The Forests? Yeah, The Forests. It says, you know how we say we devoured a story and also that we were consumed by it, eating and being eaten. It was like that with Claire for me. That's all I needed to know. I was like, this sounds so great. That cover is so fantastic. Probably my favourite cover of the year, maybe. But yeah, I'm going to do a video where I give authors a second chance, and I thought this would be a perfect book to read for that. I'm going to do a video, a vlog. And then last but not least, book, because it's one of the books that I'm most excited about that I got as a surprise, wasn't expecting it, is A Guest in the House by Emily Carroll, whose Through the Woods is one of my all-time favourite graphic novels, and this looks like it's going to be the same kind of thing. It's creepy, it's spooky, there's going to be lots of dark shenanigans going on. I just saw a picture, and I mean, that's pretty terrifying. Let me just find it for you. Oh, I've lost it, so I can't show you that now. I'm just going to have to tease you. I don't know the terminology for graphic novels. I always feel a bit out of my depth, but I do really enjoy them when I read them, and this one is one that I didn't know was coming out, and if I had known, it would be one of my most anticipated books of the year. Very excited for that indeed. Now, I described this book as a gift, but actually I meant to be doing a book swap. Libby, if you see this, I haven't forgotten. She was doing a offer of a book swap, and Ruth and Pen by Emily Pine is one that I've been wanting to get my hands on for ages. I just think one, is a stunning cover, but two, I really want to read more Irish fiction, and that's thanks to Louise Kennedy, who's got me right back into it. And this kind of feels like not similar in any way at all, but it's just going to be the sort of book that I really enjoy, because I do that with Irish fiction. Sometimes I absolutely love it, and then sometimes I just, well, really don't. So anyway, we've got that one. Two books that technically not technically, I did buy them in a previous month, and that is because, as I mentioned, the lovely folk at Books in My Bag very kindly, my hair is so floofy, it's ridiculous. Me and my mum got sent vouchers by the lovely folk at Books in My Bag to film a book shopping vlog, and we went to North Yorkshire, started the book shopping trip, and then sadly, due to circumstances within the family, we had to stop it. I did buy these two books then, the first of which was Hit Parade of Tears, stories by Izumi Suzuki, and this just caught my eye in the wonderful book corner in Halifax, and so yeah, I picked it up. Although I have to say, if you go and check Mum's reading vlog that she's done, where she's combined all the different bookshops that we ended up going to over the last couple of months, where she went on a spree, if you see it, you'll see that I had a bit of a drama about this one, because we were meant to be doing 2 bookshops that day, and I just couldn't pick a book, and this was one that I sort of grabbed quite last minute. I had picked up a few times because Mum was saying right, we need to go to another bookshop after she'd got her book. This one I thought sounded really intriguing, although the story around the author is quite heartbreaking, but I'll talk about that more when I get to the book. The other one that I got is Madwoman by Louisa Trigger. Now, me and Mum both got this at Waves of Nostalgia because the bookseller really recommended it. It's about a woman who is she wants to write about the way women are treated with mental health illnesses, and so she pretends to have one so that she can get locked up in a lunatic asylum to see the reality of it. And that sounded so incredible. It was like New York-y and Victorian-y and Gothic-y. We'll see. Next, on to books that I actually did buy in June. And I'm going to start off with all the books that I got in Hay while I was there filming Sky Arts from Hay. I loved it, but I did get overwhelmed and ended up kind of at one point just going, I think I've had enough now, I need to go home. But I did buy some corkers. So in Green Ink Books, I bought myself 3 books. I got myself Told by an Idiot by Rose Macaulay, which I'm planning on reading in the lead up to Christmas, because I just picked this up on the shelf outside and it sounded great. Also, it's a Virago Modern Classics, and I kind of want to get back into collecting those. Not to a ridiculous level, because there is a publisher that we're going to be talking about shortly where I have gone too far and actually just need to read some of the blinking books rather than keep buying them. But if I see them and they're bought by authors I love, like I've realised Edith Wharton, there's loads of her books that are not in print in the UK at the moment that you can get on eBay in these editions or second-hand bookshops, etc. This one is set shortly before Christmas in the year 1879, the 42nd year of Queen Victoria's reign, when the curtain rises on the Garden family, on Mr. Garden, a clergyman of many denominations about to lose his faith for the umpteenth time, on his selfless devoted wife, and on their 6 children about to be launched into the adult world. And it just sounds like a really good family drama. The title really had me, and then I thought, oh yeah, I would like to read that just before Christmas. And this is what I was saying about the fact that there is a publisher, Persephone Books, who, when I see them secondhand, they're such a bargain because they're expensive new. That said, I do go to the bookshop and buy quite a few whenever I'm in Bath, which is why I've ended up with quite the collection. Actually, I have got way more of them than I have read, and I need to sort that out. I think what I might do is soon do a vlog where I just read like 4 or 5 Persephone books in a video to see if actually, do I still like them? In my head I do, which is why I keep buying the blinkers. But anyway, the 2 that I got were Vain Shadow by Jane Hervey, which I hadn't heard of before. There's not a blurb in their books, which I think is quite clever. There are these gorgeous end papers though. There's always just like a sample, so I have no idea what this is about, but I hadn't heard of it before, so I picked it up. And the other one was Reuben Sachs by Amy Levy, which I feel like I could even have on my shelves already, and that also does happen sometimes with Persephone Books. Let's all move on to the next bookshop, which was Addyman's bookshop, which I have to say overwhelmed me. I did film some footage. I haven't ended up using it for a vlog. Don't know if I will. I feel like now that I've shared, or I'm sharing the books that I got in Hay, it's a bit redundant. Is it? Is it not? Let me know in the comments down below, or maybe it's a video I can do for Patreon. Anyway, Maddie Man was quite bonkers busy, but I did pick up this, which may surprise many people because I've read a few Zadie Smiths and not got on with them particularly. I did quite... No, I haven't got on with them particularly. I'm really intrigued by her new novel, which I believe a copy of may actually be coming. But recently, Renee over at So I Read This Book, Red White Teeth, well, I say recently, I think it was last year, and absolutely loved it. And I thought, oh, maybe I need to give Zadie a go, well, from the start really. And this edition is so beautiful. It's from a series of books that Penguin did where they got tattoo designers to design the covers, and I just think that is absolutely gorgeous. I'm currently really wanting a new tattoo. So anyway, maybe actually it could be a Patreon book club pick. For those of you who don't know, I do a monthly book club on Patreon because we're trying to read more sort of backlist books, and this is one that I would like to read with people, so maybe that's something that we will do. We shall see. Ironically, when I went to Richard Boo's book, which is one of the biggest second-hand bookshops in the world, I got overwhelmed in the second-hand section. I ended up leaving with a book from the new fiction section, and that is Linda Grant's The Story of the Forest. I'm a big fan of Linda Grant's writing. I've read a few of her books and loved every single one. I had no idea this was coming out. When I saw it, I did a really, got very excited, purchased it, have no idea what it's about. We'll find out when I read it. I feel like that could be a Booker book, maybe. Although I've realised, I've seen that the Booker has put all of its dates back this year. So the shortlist, longlist, I don't think is announced until like the 1st of August, which is interesting. Then I went to North Books, which is a fairly new books bookshop. Most of the bookshops in Hay-on-Wye are secondhand, possibly with a few newer titles. I got 2 books there. I got Volcana by Richard F. John, whose book... that was a secret. I had Henry Twist, but that's not right. It's something else. Hang on 1 second while I find it. Oh, it's not in there. Where is it? It'll be somewhere in the back, maybe. Haunting of Henry Twist was one of the books that I read for the Costas and personally wanted to win the year that I judged the debut category. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I've since bought a couple of her books. I bought her short story collection. I bought a book called Fanny, I want to say, which is historical fiction, and then there's this, which is also historical fiction, and I think based on a true happening in history. And I don't know what, because I just saw it and I was like, oh, I want to get that because I know that I really like her writing, but I need to actually read some more of her work. The other book that I got was A Home for All Seasons by Gavin Plumley. And you know how sometimes you're like looking for a book to give you the same hit or the same kind of hit as another book you've really loved? And for me, the book that this reminded me of when I was reading the blurb was On the Red Hill by Mike Parker. This is about Gavin and his husband buying a house called Steps House in Pembridge, Hertfordshire, and they basically do it up, I think, and it's the story of that and the house and their relationship, and that just sounds so good that I'm really keen to get to this one. I recently went back to my old stomping ground in London. I used to live in Tooting, and actually it was thanks to Tooting Library that I got, well, partly thanks to Tooting Library and also thanks to my friend Polly, that I got back into reading in my early 20s. Late early 20s, not quite mid 20s, but almost. I got back into reading after having not done so for like 6 or 7 years. So yeah, I went back there and I actually did a short mini vlog on my other channel, Savage Snapshots, which is also linked down below. There is a wonderful new independent bookshop in Balham called Backstory, and so I popped in and I left with Watching Women and Girls by Danielle Pender, again a book that I saw on Jen's channel and sounded brilliant, and so I thought I would get my mitts on it. It's a short story collection about women who are being watched or are watching other women, and I think that sounds really interesting. So yeah, very excited for this one. I also popped into the local Oxfam bookshop and got Monopolies of Loss by Adam Mars Jones. Adam Mars Jones is an author who I first discovered when I read Pilcrow, which I believe the 3rd in that trilogy, which I've been waiting on I think for over a decade, is coming out quite soon. I loved his writing then. He's recently been published by Fitzcarraldo Editions. He has got a long list of books that are no longer in print. This I think is from the 80s and looks at the AIDS epidemic and the monopolies of loss from that time, and I think it's going to be heartbreaking. And I did mean to read this in June because it's Pride Month. However, at the same time, you should be reading queer books all year round, not just 1 month of the year. So I had to remind myself of that. Then these next 4 books I bought at different points in June in different Waterstones, and then we'll go back to some more indie bookshops that I bought books from. The first is Miss Major Speaks, which is Toshio Moronic and Miss Major in conversation. It's conversations with a black trans revolutionary. I have seen people just raving about this. So it's basically a conversation transcribed that Toshio and Miss Major have, and it's just meant to be ace. I've seen amazing reviews of that all Pride Month. Then another queer book, Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. I am a huge fan of Lex Croucher, to the point I was talking about this when I saw Lena at the Women's Prize live festival. There are some people who, like, if you meet them in real life, you just get a bit nervous because you're just like really like a big fan of them. And I am Lex's, and I actually was in the same room as her way back when I did Sky Arts live from Cheltenham at like the launch event, and I was too nervous to go and say hello, just too nervous. Anyway, I really, really, really admire them, and am very intrigued to get to this and actually read all of their books because I have them all. I just haven't read them. It's rare I buy a hardback. However, I have been obsessed with this book cover for ages. I don't even really know what it's about, but the cover's so beautiful, I just feel like I need to read it. This is A History of Burning by Janica Oza. So what I gather this is about is it's initially set in India and then is about a group of people who then go on to Uganda, which is something that I have read about in other books. That cover made me buy it. It's a complete and utter cover buy, and I can't say anything else. Another book that was a complete and utter cover and spreages buy, but I would have got it anyway because the first in the series left me on such a cliffhanger. Like, I was begging and begging and begging to get the proof, and the proof actually arrived the day after I bought this. It's Juno Dawson's The Shadow Cabinet, which is the follow-up to Her Majesty's Royal Coven. And yeah, it's spreads, it's gorgeous, it's witchy. I'm gonna love it. The end. Very excited for it. Books that I bought in London when me and Mum went to a couple more bookshops, but I didn't include them in any footage or anything because, one, I wasn't vlogging. That said, I have done 4 books in my bag because I didn't include these books in it, but I did do a TikTok and I did do one of my Savage Snapshots as well. So there we go. I know, I'm on TikTok. TikTok. Oh dear, I'm really down with the kids. Because I did pick up books in every bookshop. I didn't. So for the first, I think, 3, I didn't pick up anything. However, when we went into Gaze the Word, which I was so chuffed to take Mum to for the first time, she loved it. Gina Dawson popped in while we were there, which was lovely. And Uli was there and it was lovely, and we had a really lovely chat. There's something quite magical about Gaze the Word. So magical that I bought 2 books. The first of which is Ceres Blooms at Night by Shani Mutu, who is an author that I have a couple of books on my TBR. They're imported editions. They're just up here. And I've been meaning to read for ages. This though, when I pulled it out, the cover just gives me like sort of Caribbean Rebecca feels. That's the only way I can describe it, but like a summer gothic, and having read it, it totally is. It was then the first line on the back that made me decide, right, I was definitely getting this book, because it says, everyone thinks Marla is a murderer, and that made me think of The Bandit Queens by Perini Schroff, which is one of my favourite books this year, to the point that I made a whole video about it, which I'll try and remember to link down below. I'm not going to say what I think about this book, and I'm not saying too much more about it just because I don't want to accidentally say too much, because this is the latest pick for my Patreon book club, which I mentioned earlier. This is our July pick, and we'll be talking about it on Wednesday the 5th of July at 7 p.m. on Zoom. And if you want to join in and join the book club, please do. It's lovely. My mum's appeared a couple of times and she blinking loves it. Pip's going to be joining us at some point for a crime novel. Chris is going to join us for something about food. Yeah, it's just a really, really fun time as well with some really, really fantastic people. And I can't wait to talk to them about this on the 5th of July, so I'm saying no more. The other book that I got was a recommendation from Uli, who I adore and known for ages. This is The Whale Tattoo by John Ransom, and Uli just said it's just fantastic. And when I looked into it, it's set in the north of England, in Norfolk, so that really, really appealed. It's about a man who is kind of confused. He's working class, and how does his sexuality fit in with that? excuse the plane, but also it's about the beaching of a giant sperm whale, and so I think it looks at nature too. I think he's having a relationship with a fisherman. There's something that sounds slightly sexy about that. I'm not sure quite what it is, but all of those things that, but mainly Ula's recommendation, I was like, right, I'm picking that book up. So I did. Then my mum was insistent that we went to Nomad Books in Fulham, and I'm glad she was, because it's blinking lovely. I'd never been before. It's got a fantastic curated fiction section, non-fiction, and the most amazing children's section. And I actually bought a couple of books that I don't have here because they were for my new step-nephew. My mum has become a granny. It was just brilliant, and the staff were so lovely. And I picked up Chloe Lane's The Swimmers, which is a book about a woman who goes back to stay with her family. Her mum's terminally ill, and she's decided that she's going to end her life in the forthcoming week, and it's how everyone has to deal with that. I just thought that sounded really different and unusual. I think it might be an author from New Zealand, and I've read quite a lot of Australian literature, but I haven't read much New Zealand literature, so that excited me. And the other one that I got is Arrangements in Blue by Amy Key, which I've just heard amazing things about. I've never listened to Toni Morrison's Blue album, which this interacts with in some way, so I think I'm going to listen to it while I read it. But from what I've heard, this is a really powerful book on loving yourself and platonic love, and what life might look like if you don't find other types of love within it, and what other types of love you can find instead. But I read the first page and I was like, oh my goodness, this sounds amazing, and so I picked it up. Actually, I'm lying. I got that in London Review of Books. Sorry, correction on that one. Naughty me. My penultimate book shopping now. This is a charity shop find that I got for June's Savage Prompt. Now, I said I was not going to buy new books, or actually technically this isn't a new book, so I wasn't going to buy any books for Savage Prompts. However, the prompt was to find a book that matched what me or mum were wearing in our video where we launched the different prompts, and I was wearing a green and white striped rugby shirt which looked like a crime classic, and so I picked this up. I have read this, got quite mixed thoughts on it, which we will talk about in my wrap up in due course. It hasn't aged well. This is Josephine Tey's The Franchise Affair, and I've read one Josephine Tey before and had meant to read more, and so this seemed perfect. And last but not least, this was the Mad Spree selection, still in the bag, that I got from the West Kirby Bookshop with my books and my bag vouchers. So what did I pick up? Well, one book I've already mentioned before, but we'll come to that shortly. I got Heather Parry's This Is My Body Given For You, which is short stories from Heather Parry, who wrote Orpheus Builds a Girl, which I have on my shelves. I still haven't read. I want to at some point. I wanted to get to these short stories because I'd heard some brilliant bubblings on Instagram. Also, I picked books that were all by queer authors for Pride Month. Now, this really intrigued me because Jordan and Dan, who run the West Kirby Bookshop, were really divided on their opinions of it. Jordan really loved it, Dan really didn't, and that really intrigues me. I love books that are quite Marmite with people. That really makes me want to head to them. It's Pony Boy by Elliot Duncan, and Jordan put it in my hands, and then Dan said, oh God, I didn't like that book, and then I was like, right, well, I'm taking it because this is so interesting. It says, in the first of 3 acts, Pony Boy's titular narrator, a pill-popping, speed-snorting, transmasculine lightning bolt, unravels in his Paris apartment. Pony Boy is caught in a messy love triangle with Baby, a lesbian painter who can't see herself being with someone trans, and Tony, a childhood friend who can actually see Pony Boy for who he is. And we follow on from there. What a corking cover that is. Then I picked up Love Me Tender by Constance Debray. Now, this is, I should say, translated by Holly James from French. This was a book that Mum almost bought in a bookshop the week before, but she said, oh, I'm not buying any hardbacks. And then she started putting this, and I was like, oh, you said you weren't buying any hardbacks, so I accidentally put her off. Sorry, Mum. Again, the blurb just really intrigued me. When Constance told her ex-husband Laurent that she was dating women, he made a string of unfounded accusations that separated her from her 8-year-old son, Paul. Laurent trained... Oh, is it not... Hang on a minute. Is it fiction or is it memoir?
Maybe it's a fictional account of what she went through? I don't know.
Anyway, made a string of unfounded accusations that separated her from her 8-year-old son Paul. Laurent trained Paul to say he no longer wants to see his mother, and judge believed him. And it's what, follows on from there. But I can't. It is a novel of defiance, hard-bought freedom, and self-knowledge, but clearly it's kind of auto-fiction, I think. And also, I should say, Miles, when I went to Blackwell's in Oxford ages ago, was raving about this, and I didn't buy it then, but I should have. So there we are. I got it in the end. Then we have another book that I've actually read that I bought in June. What's going on with me? That never usually happens. And that is And Then He Sang a Lullaby by Annie Coyote Somtochukwu. This is a book about two young Nigerian men who fall in love and what happens in their relationship, and looks at the prejudices in Nigeria for people who are queer. It looks at a particular time when there was a lot of political tensions around gay lives with the ban of gay marriage, and it's incredibly powerful. I have thoughts that I will talk about in my wrap-up. Another book that I read in June, that I bought in June, I mean, imagine, was Mrs. S by Kay Patrick. This is about a woman who goes to work at a all-girls school, and she's the matron there, and she falls in love with the headmaster's wife, and it looks at that relationship. I'll be talking about this in my wrap-up very soon. And then the aforementioned Page Boy, so I now have 2 copies, although my friend Tess, who I work with at Libraries Connected, she said she would really, really like to read it, so I will give her my spare copy. And penultimately, a book that I also bought on the channel a while, but I ended up gifting someone because I thought it would be just that kind of thing. And this is Rosewater by Liv Little. When I was at Hay, Emma Dabbery had interviewed her and was raving about this book, and I was like, right, I need to get that back on my shelves because I've gifted it to someone else. And then last but not least, I got Men at War by Luke Turner. Loving, lusting, fighting, remembering 1939 to 1945. I don't normally have any interest in books set around World War I or World War II. I studied them both so much at school, it put me off life. That said, I absolutely loved Luke's debut non-fiction book, which I want to say was Into the Woods, but I think that could be wrong. Out of the Woods, sorry, which looked at Epping Forest and looked at Luke's sexuality as a bisexual man, and just looked at nature and human nature, and I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. So I trust that this isn't my thing on paper, but I'm gonna love it because Luke wrote it. So there we go. Wowzers. I think it's probably a really, really long video, so I'm gonna have to edit it like an absolute. But it's lovely to be back after my little break, and I've got some hopefully lovely videos coming up that you will enjoy. I've recorded a few already. Pip might be back with Crime Time, that's all I'm saying. I've recorded a few, and I'm planning on recording a few more before this week is out. I hope you've all had a lovely June. What books did you get in June? What books are you looking forward to in July? And let me know if there's any videos you'd like me to make over the forthcoming months, as I sort of, I want to have like a bank of them at the ready. I think that helps against burnout. Anyway, I'm waffling on. As always, it's been really, really lovely talking to you all. Thank you for spending time with me. And if you want to have a chat about anything, be it the books that I've mentioned, actually, I will say, if you've read any of these and you didn't like them, don't tell me that yet, because predominantly, I've read a few of them, like a few out of that selection, but not loads, and I'm excited about them, so I don't want anyone raining on my parade. I was going to say pissing on my parade, either or. And also, if you want to get more content from me, you can head to my new mini blog channel, Savage Snapshots, my Instagram, my TikTok, my Twitter, all of those are linked down below, along with Patreon that I've mentioned, along with my wishlist, and along with Sky Arts Book Club Facebook group, where you can see Sky Arts from Hay. I will see you in another video very, very soon. And actually, if you got to the end of this, leave me an emoji of a heart and then some books. That would be lovely. I will speak to you all in another one very, very soon. Bye.